Now is former senior advisor to President Trump, Kellyanne Conway, along with Stagwell CEO and former Clinton advisor, Mark Penn. Great to have you both here. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to begin on these polls. It's surprising to me, given the lack of information we have around Kamala Harris's policies, that Trump is only leading by 1 point, Kellyanne. Why such a tight race? What do you think's behind it?
It's a tight race because of what President Trump just said, Maria, which is people don't know Kamala Harris, which is completely confounding. She needs to eat and own the entire Biden economic agenda. She's been there. And let me say something about this price gouging nonsense. This isn't about price gouging. This is what happens when you spend money that we don't have on things we don't need as a federal government, when you tax and regulate and legislate small businesses, moms and pops and moms and dads into oblivion, when you have supply chain shocks for most of the first part of your administration. This is a man-made economic crisis in our country. And Kamala Harris speaks like somebody who's never held office before. She wants to fix all the current problems. Folks, she created the current problems. And that really is the message here. So this is a very simple binary choice on the economy. You either want record wage growth, household wages, low unemployment, lower inflation, lower interest rates, higher morale, higher savings, swelling portfolios under President Trump that we already had, or you want the performance of Trump or the promises of Kamala Harris. And look, if you lose the Washington Post and even the New York Times in your price gouging nonsense, you got trouble. Last point, Kamala Harris's economic measures so far are some odd combination, Maria, of either copycatting Donald Trump. He did the insulin at $35. There was a Rose Garden ceremony. People pull the clips in May 2020. He did that. Yeah. He's doing no taxes on tips. Or some moderate centrist voodoo stuff by her that simply doesn't match her votes in office all along. So she really can't get away with it. I think she needs to eat and own every bad policy.
Well, after all, Mark Penn, she was the deciding vote for at least two of these massive packages, the Inflation Reduction Act and the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which totaled about $2.5 trillion of the $7 trillion in spending. She was also a big proponent of the climate change agenda, which we expect to continue, and that included green energy, tax credits, et cetera, more spending here. Can she get away with, distancing herself from the Harris-Biden or the Biden-Harris administration and all of its policies this entire cycle ahead of the election, Mark?
Well, that's going to be the job of the Trump campaign. The Harris campaign has been successful so far in step one, bring together the Democratic Party, bring back a lot of the voters who'd gotten super wobbly because they just couldn't stick with Joe Biden for another term, given the health and age and other issues. And so she reestablished, I think, the 50-50 nature of the country, Democrat versus Republican, that we saw in the last congressional race, and brought back all those voters. Now, I think it's a relatively uninformed electorate. They don't know that much about Harris. And the Harris campaign plans to keep it that way. Put out some popular, targeted tax proposals, emphasize the benefits of those proposals on housing, on childcare, on food, and skate above it. That's the plan. And so far, that plan has not been knocked off its pedestal.
So uninformed electorate, meaning they don't understand what her policies are and how they're going to affect their family, even though we just saw it in the last 4 years, 3.5 years. Kellyanne, J.D. Vance this week slammed Harris and Waltz for avoiding reporters. Watch this.
The Harris campaign is not running a political campaign. They're trying to produce a movie. She never stands before the American people without a script. She never talks to voters unless a teleprompter is right in the middle of them. If you are afraid of a friendly media, and the media has been very friendly to Kamala Harris, then how can we possibly trust you to represent us on the world stage?
Yeah, and Kellyanne, nothing on her schedule yet as President Trump rallies over and over again. He's rallying in Pennsylvania this weekend after holding a press conference on Thursday where he spoke for over an hour and a half with reporters. He answered all of their questions, Kellyanne. Can she continue this, hiding in the basement?
She can. She's doing the Biden and the Basin strategy right in front of our eyes, Maria, up on stages with full arenas, at a podium, reading from a teleprompter. Let me tell you something. When that famous call comes in at 3 a.m., to the President of the United States, our Commander-in-Chief, there is no teleprompter. And look at this split-screen candidacy that we have right now. You have Trump and Vance out there on the daily, engaging with hostile reporters, legacy media, facing the voters. Trump back on Twitter, now known as X. People were starving and thirsting for Trump content. Look at the hundreds of millions of engagement just in the Trump spaces, even apart from his interview with Musk. It's continued. He's facing the reporters. He's unafraid, and he has presided over the democratization of information. And we know that she's going to be all telepromptered up at the convention. I think when JD says they're producing a movie, not running a traditional campaign, that's true, because traditional campaigns in 2024 do a lot more engagement with the voters, and I'm glad Trump and Vance are doing that.
Well, Mark, what are the groups that you see that the Trump campaign needs to reach? I mean, do you see conviction on the part of Kamala, the conviction from voters on the part of Kamala, or do you see really independents and unknowns out there? Zero in on the groups that you think are most important right now.
Well, when someone's favorable goes from 38 to 47 on the basis of no actual accomplishment, those votes are soft. That's when I say an uninformed electorate that could move back relatively quickly. Look, I think when it comes to voters concerned about immigration, Trump doesn't need to waste much talk about that, because he's got all of those voters, and all the crime voters probably too. The voters who are really up for grabs are those who have felt the pinch of inflation and the economy. That's why Harris is moving to address the economy as quickly as possible, because the swing voters are really working class voters who have felt the impact of the economy, who are going to vote for a new administration unless they have a clear conviction on one of these candidates on the economy.
Yeah, it's great analysis from you both. We so appreciate it. Kellyanne Conway and Mark Penn, thank you very much.